Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Roundtable, Rising from the Ashes. Your addiction is not your identity. I am here with some very powerhouse, amazing women. And normally I would ask them to introduce themselves, but I want to go ahead and introduce them because I want it to land with you guys just how amazing, incredible, and powerful each of these ladies are. So please welcome Andra Annette, who is a nurse, holistic practitioner, human body specialist, expert in the leaky gut, and best-selling author. And then we have Ashley, who is a mindset coach who helps fempreneurs break through their limiting beliefs to master mindset and productivity and abundance. She's also a speaker and best-selling author. And then we have Angela, who is a mompreneur and success coach and growth specialist, CEO of the Inspired and Profitable Mompreneur, and also a best-selling author. And hopefully Samantha will come back on. Hi, Samantha. And then we also have Samantha, who is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, best-selling author, certified personal trainer, and holistic lifestyle coach. And the reason that I wanted to read out those introductions is because these titles, these accomplishments, these things are who these women are now today. And I wanted to land that, we've all been involved in addictions, but our addictions are not our identities. They are something that happened to us in the past. They are something that we went through. They are something that we made a conscious decision to overcome, break through, and become who we are today. So thank you, ladies, for joining me this morning. I'm so excited to share your stories.
So excited to be here.
All right. So I just want to, what we're going to cover is, what is addiction? What does addiction mean to you? What brought you to the point where you were in a space where you chose addiction, or, landed in a space that you were prompted to get involved in the things that you're going to talk about. And I want this to be, it's going to be streamed live, but I want this to be a real heartfelt, sincere share of your stories, because I want this to inspire other women who are watching to know that they can go from being where you were in the depths of despair and make a conscious choice to be and do and change things. So I'll start with you, Andra. What does addiction mean to you?
It means inhibiting myself, I guess, staying closed off to the world and not really sharing with another human being who you are or what's going on inside of you, because you're so stuck inside your own head. So, and I'm going to get emotional. It kept me very trapped for a very long time. I felt like nobody understood me. Nobody got me. And I allowed that to keep me from sharing. I grew up in a household that would happen in this house, stayed in this house. So that was the beginning of me not sharing. And then it just got easier to really, when I look back, I just forgot who I was. I didn't know my identity. I didn't know who Andra was until much later on in life.
Right. And I think that happens with a lot of us. The childhood home that we grow up in sort of fosters all the decisions we make from there on out. And so that's very important that we're going to break that stigma of people knowing that you have the voice to speak out. So Ashley, what about you? What does addiction mean to you?
So just like how Andra was explaining, it's like feeling trapped, right? Leaning into something that you think is going to help you, make you feel better, like the self-soothing, but really it's this just continuous cycle that's keeping you trapped, feeling stuck, low, like really, like I'm going to get emotional too now, but it's just really turning down to something that is so harmful, and that's actually adding that ripple effect to your life, that same cycle that just can't break.
Absolutely. All right. How about you, Angela?
So I guess for me, am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Okay. I guess for me with addiction, it meant not feeling things. So I'm an empath and I feel everybody's feelings. And I also I'm also a recovering people pleaser. So I had this great need that when I knew people felt bad, to try to make them feel better. And for me, addiction was a way of not feeling. And it was also a way of controlling things that were outside of my control. So if I couldn't control what was happening around me, or I couldn't control what was, being said or done, I could control my body. I could control how much food I ate. I could control, how much I exercised. And and I could then get rid of any feelings that came along with that by numbing out. So it was a way of getting through what to me appeared at the time a world that was very unaccepting of me and who I was, and just surviving. As silly as that might sound, it was a method of survival for me.
What landed for me when you were talking is that it was something that you can control. You know, it's something that you did to control. But for me, in my head, addiction really speaks to being out of control. That's my mindset about it, and that's, you know, my perception of it, I guess, to say. But we'll circle back around to that in a little bit. So, Samantha, what about you? What does addiction mean to you? You're muted. All right, we'll circle back to her when
All
she
right,
gets.
can you hear me now?
Now we can. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know what's. It's like my whole thing reset today. I think for me, you kind of pinpointed it was it's like for me it was the inability to stop something and then like you do it on overload. So it's not like it's you know you're overdoing you're overdoing a activity, an item, a thing, whatever it may be, an emotion, and it's your inability to have any control over it, but your idea in your head is you feel like it's helping you gain control, or it's doing something for you that's better, it's helping you, but it's really hindering you in the long run. I would say really bad.
I don't know if that's your sound, but I hear some buzzing going on. So I just want to circle back to, you know, for me, growing up as a child, I viewed addiction. My dad was a raging alcoholic, and I viewed addiction as something to be ashamed of, something that was like to be, like Ashley said, hidden. And, you know, Andra said, keep it in the home, don't say anything. And so when we went out into the world, we were this family that everything was, you know, pink and rainbows and unicorns, and nobody knew what was going on at home. And I think for me also, I grew up with that stigma thinking that addiction is a bad thing. And I'll be honest, I judged people with addictions. I would walk by people and go like, oh, yep, she's on drugs. Oh, yep, she's an alcoholic. And I would judge people. But it wasn't until I really got real with myself and realized I have those behaviors too. And I come from a family of those types of behaviors that I started, you know, really looking at it differently, in a different light, and understanding that it is something that we're not in control of. But I want to ask, do you guys think that addiction is a conscious choice? I mean, do you consciously choose to do these behaviors, or is it just something that you're pushed into because of what's going on around you? I'm curious to see what you guys think.
I'll go. Want me to go?
Go ahead.
Okay, I think it's a combination of both. I think it might start out with a certain behavior that is gradual, like, okay, you like exercising, or, you know, like you like the feeling of drugs, and then it progresses into something that's more of a disease that's manifested inside you. So for me, it was, I think that, you know, alcoholism and addiction with drugs, it's a disease 100%, in that it could be dormant, just like an autoimmune or whatever else. But if you're doing things that are going to trigger it and kind of like light the fire under it, then I think that disease becomes very active. It's like if you're a diabetic and you eat super clean, and then your gut, like you have precursor markers to be a diabetic, and you eat really clean, so you never get to the point where you're an actual diabetic where you need medication, then you're good. But if you start eating sugar and carbs and all that crap, then you're going to have to do something about it. And so I definitely think that it's a combination of the two things, depending on where you are mentally and emotionally. Like if you're trying to numb something and you're an addict deep down inside, that's just, you know, that's the recipe for disaster right there.
Right. I agree. And so I think, you know, do you think that it's something that lies dormant in everybody, and it's just based upon what your markers are, what your chemical makeup is, that type of thing?
I mean, I can say I can see a little bit of an ism in everyone, you know, like I'm like, oh, they might have it. But there are people who can go and have one glass of wine. I do not know how to do that. Like, well, I didn't drink wine, but you know what I mean? Like where there are people who aren't having that kind of problem. They have the ability to control things, but they don't even think about it. But it's obsession of the mind, I think, that starts.
All right, cool. Anybody else? Do you think it's a conscious choice? Go ahead, Andra.
I think there are some people that are just physically, it runs in their family, like the genetics. I mean, I knew at 6 years old, I had a physical allergy, boat closing. That didn't stop me from finding things that I could have. So, but there is definitely, like Samantha said, that emotional compulsion, and it might not start off that way, but it does wind up that way. And I think anybody has the propensity to get to that point. I don't think it's just a genetic makeup. I think that anybody can, depending on where you are and emotionally, get to that point.
That makes complete sense. How about you, Angela? What do you think?
For me, I think it was a combination of both. I mean, when it came to, you know, eating disorders and that sort of thing, I can remember the exact thing that was said to me that set it off. The exact words, the time, where I was, the place, exactly what changed everything. But when it came to alcohol, I chose that. For as hard as it might be for people to believe, I was doing a job that I didn't feel confident in. It was asking me to do things that I wasn't confident in. And somebody told me that the former CEO of the company gave his best presentations when he was hammered. Whew. And I said, okay. So I just got to take the edge off.
Wow.
And I chose to try that. And unfortunately, it got out of control, but it was a choice. I chose to go down that path. Okay. So it's interesting. It was
all right. We're going to circle back around to that as well. But Ashley, I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, so I do agree that it's a combination of both. And I remember when I was like heavily drinking at one point in my life, I was so trapped. I was so hurt. I didn't even know who I was, but like I knew not to do it. But then after the habit, like, you know, I was used to it. Like it's the end of the weekend or the week, whatever, go grab your drinks, or I'm stressed out, go have a drink. And even though I knew not to do it, I was still making that conscious decision of, you know, just go. So it was like on this autopilot kind of thing, right? Until I really worked on myself and I went for that healing and I did that inner work. And, you know, there's some days too, like I feel like I'm stressed out. I'm like, I want to have that drink. But I make that choice and I say, no, I'm like, you don't need to, because you're looking for a way to escape something right now. But what you can do is you could go do this. But I find that when I was in that hurt rock bottom, consciously, like even though I was conscious, but like subconsciously, I was making those decisions and still drinking continuously. So
yeah.
I mean,
okay. And so what's landing for me is, you know, it's a combination of things. It's our environment, it's our childhood, it's the things that are going on around us. It's, you know, subconscious patterns of what we've learned from growing up, that type of thing. And so I know that this is a really raw subject, but I'm not wanting to share your story to sensationalize it, but I want people to understand where you were in the depths of your despair, how bad you were and how you spiraled down, because I want people to see where that was and then understand that you made a conscious choice to get yourself out of that. And then we'll discuss some of the tools that each of you use to, you know, build yourself back up and get out of it. And then the tools that you continue to use today, because it's not over. It's never done with and over. It's always a conscious everyday decision. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to take that drug. I'm not going to XYZ. So who wants to go first to share your story? Go for it, Andra.
So I guess with me, I was just so sick of dying inside. Every day I felt like a little more of me died. I walked into AA when I was 13, but I didn't stay. I didn't follow the principles of the program. I went around the room, like you said, and said, you got a problem, you got a problem, and you got a problem, but I'm fine. So I didn't really get it until I really listened to the program. But I think when my sister died, I felt like something was ripped from my heart. I physically felt like somebody went inside, and I didn't get out of bed. And there was that good friend alcohol that always calmed me and made me feel nothing. And I didn't want to feel what I was feeling. And I stayed that way for a while. I was angry at God. I let him know. I stopped wearing a cross I had around my neck since I made my communion. And I just went inside and I stayed there. I stopped getting close to people because what's the point? They're just going to leave. And she was like this closest thing I had in this world. I had many sisters, but her and I were like that. And I was devastated. And one day I just started talking to him. Like, I found the cross where I had hid it. And I felt like he was talking to me because I had a very close relationship with God. I always did. I spoke to him about everything. And I made a deal with him, that if he allowed me the gift of sight, I was holding on to a lot of anger and a lot of hurt. And some of it I couldn't remember because of situations and where I was. And I asked him to give me that gift of sight so that I could forgive them and move on. Because I knew that I wasn't really hurting them, that this was hurting me. And I wanted to live more than I wanted to die. And I wasn't living. It wasn't a real life. I was waking up and just kind of going through the motions. And I stayed alone for a long time. I went to work and I was home, work. And I really didn't. And I was in marriages. So, but I didn't really share myself fully with anybody. I didn't know how. And I wanted to know how. I wanted to have that closeness with someone. So for me, it was an emotional bottom. It wasn't a physical bottom. I mean, I broke my back. I got hit by a car. I was found in front of my mother's door, stabbed, dead. I was clinically dead with my clothes inside out. And I mean, there were those things, but I was sober when those situations happened. It was the people that I was with and that brought me to those situations. And they were all around alcohol. So I wasn't safe anywhere around alcohol, whether I was drinking or not.
Or someone else.
And I knew that the people and the places that I was bringing myself to weren't consistent with the type of life I wanted to live. And I had to finally let them go if I was going to, as much as I thought it would pain me, it didn't. I didn't miss those type of people. They weren't people that really cared about me to begin with. I started to understand what real love looked like and what life looked like.
That's awesome.
But he did give me the gift of sight.
So at what age was that you would you say was
my
your lowest
sister
point?
died in 2008. So I had long periods of abstinence and sobriety. Like I would go to AA and then I wouldn't, but that was back in 2008. And I think it was 2010 or 11. And then when my mother died, I would pick up again. But I've been sober for a long time now, many, many years.
Celebrating.
But that was really that was the real icing on the cake. So I mean, I did get sober, and I had a lot of years, and then nothing particular happened. Somebody just handed me a drink, and I picked it up like it was second nature, and I immediately felt sick. And I put it down and walked back into AA, So I love AA. I can't imagine my life without it. And it's only good if you carry the message and you know what I mean? But it saved my life.
Absolutely. We'll circle back around to the AA thing, but I'm just curious. So did everybody around you know that you were having this issue with alcohol, or was it something that you hid? Was it like you're one person out in the street, but you're somebody else at home?
No, I guess for a long time, the people at home knew more than the people out because I was very functional. I lived my life. I never let alcohol interfere with my job or things like that. I always showed up because nobody showed up for me. So it was my duty to show up because I was that people pleaser. So I didn't allow it to interfere with that part of my life, or so you tell yourself, But,
Right.
when I first walked into AA, I was worried about people looking at me funny for working in church, but they probably saw me falling down or stupid somewhere else, you know? So I don't know. Your thinking is really bizarre. It took really about a year for my thinking to get back to normal. So
That's awesome.
I don't know. I don't know what they saw. I just know what I saw every day when I saw that person in the mirror, and it wasn't good.
Awesome. All right. I'm celebrating the fact that you made that choice and that you're sober and you've been sober for a long time. And we're going to come back around to the AA, to the tools in a little bit. But I want Angela to share your story next.
So, yeah, probably at the worst, I was drinking 2 bottles of wine just to get through the day. And that didn't include what I was drinking when I got home at night. And I was functional. I was functional, like to the point when I got a DUI. The arresting officer said to me afterwards, "This is clearly a problem because the level of alcohol in your system, you should be passed out on the floor and you can talk coherent sentences."
Wow.
And I will credit that man with saving my life to the day I die, because I knew it was a problem. It was just, and I try to explain this to people, I never woke up every morning saying, "Oh yeah, I really love this. I need to have a drink to function." There was never a day that went by that I didn't wish it was different. I didn't know how to make it different because it hurt and I was scared and I felt alone. So, I mean, after that, I did, go to AA. It wasn't my place. I love that it works for people. I guess this is where my kind of story is a bit off the beaten path. I decided for myself, I said, "Okay, Angela, you've seen what you can do. Like, when you commit yourself fully to being destructive, what does it look like if you commit yourself fully to being the very best you can be?"
Wow.
And then that's what I set out to do. And to do that, I had to learn how to love myself, and I had to learn how to value me, and value me enough to set boundaries, and value me enough to say, "No, thank you," and value me enough to say, "You don't really fit in my life anymore." And it just became about loving me. And for me, that worked. And I am one of those really odd people that can have a glass of wine and then walk away.
And it's really powerful that you said that you made that choice in the midst of all that. You made the choice to know that you created this problem per se, but you also know that you can look at it in a different way, from a different perspective, and choose to learn to love yourself. Obviously, you hadn't been in the past and you did it. Would you say that you think it became just a habit? That's why you could do it every day? And
no, it's still a choice. It's still, I specifically I have a very stringent set of rules. If I ever think that I'm having a drink or something because I'm trying to deal with a feeling, it's a hard pass. If I think that I am relying on, the thing is, though, it's so much bigger than that for me. If I think I am relying on anything in my life to cope or numb a feeling, whether it be exercise, whether it be, food, whether it be fighting with people, whether it be, like becoming a hermit, whatever it is, if I look at it and say, am I trying to use this to avoid dealing with something that makes me uncomfortable, then it immediately becomes something I can no longer do in that moment. And I need to choose again.
Wow.
Because I have to make that choice. So no, it's not a habit. I mean, I choose myself every morning. I wake up every morning and I choose to go to the doctor and get help when the anxiety gets to be too much. I choose to have a therapist. I choose to do these things, but I choose it from a place of self-love. Not because everybody else wants me to be better, because I deserve it.
I love that. I love that you took back that power and you feel that, and that every single day it's a conscious choice, because that's
now, mind you, I had to go through detox to get there. I couldn't choose it when I was in the depth of my drinking. I mean, then I was taking you know, one of the sedatives that they give you to get through detox, and spent 7 days in a detox program and had to, you know, get to a place where I could choose myself.
Right.
Right. I wasn't, you know.
Just to wake up one day and go, okay, I'm going to flip
Yeah,
the
no,
switch.
today's the day. No, that didn't happen. There was work to get there, but.
Right. Okay,
you know.
awesome. And we're going to talk about the tools that each of you use too, but I want Ashley to be able to share her story, and Samantha as well. So Ashley, go ahead.
Yeah, so my story, I could relate with Angela a lot too, because, well, when I was younger, I was molested. In high school, I was sexually assaulted by 3 men. And at one point too, like when my daughter's father were together, we're like falling apart. And that's when I was even turning more to alcohol. And at the beginning part, no one really seen it because like I was like kind of hidden kind of thing, but then they started clicking in. Then it started becoming visible to the world. I got myself arrested, which I'm not happy about. It was a long journey. I tried the counseling, the therapy. I felt it wasn't working for me. I was still hitting that brick wall. One thing that I do know that helped me was my friend one day, because the building where I live at, the kids were all playing, and not too far they have an AA. And she goes, you know, I'm going to a meeting. She's like, you know what, let me take you. And I was like, oh, no, it's okay. I have my daughter here playing. But all the moms are saying, no, we'll take care of her. So I went to that meeting, and that AA meeting helped. I had a sponsor. And it wasn't just necessarily like you have the steps and everything, but it was finding yourself, I found, right? Like the things that you were working through and with your sponsor. And it really helped me. And I can never thank my friend enough. And, you know, I do have the odd glass of wine or two once in the blue moon, but like how Angela says, like if I feel that I'm getting stressed out and my brain's going, oh, we'll just go have a drink. No, that's not it. And I really, truly, one thing that I learned from this was really loving myself, finding out who I am a person, because I didn't know who I was. I was fighting all these things on my own, holding all these emotions. I was mad at my mom for not being able to see that I was molested when I was younger. I'm like, you are a mom. You should have seen this. But it wasn't even her fault because everything was hidden, right? So when I truly stepped into that room with the AA and I worked with the sponsor, and being able to go through my resentments and all the stuff that I went through, all that baggage that I was carrying, and to be able to heal through it and to really forgive myself and others and to really love myself, that was the biggest game changer.
I absolutely love that the common running theme that I'm hearing is choosing to love yourself. And for women, I want anybody who's watching this to understand how powerful that tool is. Learning to figure out who you are. I mean, a lot of us have identity crisis where we don't know who we are because we take on these labels that society has put on us, or we've self-imposed on ourselves, and we can't see past that. But for all of us to get to the point where we decide, I'm something more, I'm meant for more, I'm worthy of more, that is so powerful. And I just want anybody who's watching this to understand that you have that deep within inside you as well. You are worthy of being loved. You are worthy of loving yourself first. And that's what makes the change and the difference in your life, is when you decide that you need to love yourself first. All right, Samantha, you're next.
Oh, I don't even know where to begin. So tell me exactly what you want us to answer.
I want to know what led you to your addiction. What was your deepest depth of despair? And then what flipped that thing inside you that you decided, okay, I need to get my head out of my ass and do something different?
So what led me to my addiction? You know, now that I'm doing like extensive therapy with like the mental emotional part, I know my relapse definitely had to deal with a lot of loss, postpartum depression, a really abusive, toxic relationship. Prior to that, I kind of have like a chunks, but I was kind of, I have a lot of like emotional childhood trauma, but it wouldn't be something that the average person would look back and say, oh my God, you were molested or abused. I think I have a disease, and that's just the bottom line going on there. I don't really, I can't. My mom's always like, what did I do? And I'm like, you didn't do it. I mean, there is definitely some stuff with my family now looking back, but I just like I've had this theory, like live life to the fullest. And that means go get really effed up all the time, and party. It wasn't like go climb Mount Everest. Like I was doing a lot of really amazing things in my life. So maybe I checked those boxes. Like I did some really great stuff as a child. So maybe that was fulfilled some way. And I'm fortunate that I had parents that got me involved in that kind of stuff. So I didn't, as long as I didn't screw up any responsibilities, I was good. So I was, one of the top varsity 8 rowers in the US for 2 years. I was, I went to state for swimming. Freshman year, my grades were awful, but, I had so many signs. Like in 8th grade, I started using in 7th grade. And it just sort of like, I just wanted to get fucked up and have fun. Like, and it starts and it's fun. And then it's not fun. And I had a really good run of fun and being able to balance a very successful lifestyle. So, I mean, I was a blackout drinker from the get-go. I hated drinking, but I kept doing it. I didn't have any other options when I was in high school and grade school. I got arrested in 8th grade for smoking pot on a field trip and for school. I've been pulled over more times than I can begin to tell you in high school for drinking and doing drugs. And I would do anything except for I wouldn't put any needles in my arm and I wouldn't smoke crack. It's kind of like those were my hard lines, which is insane. And then come full forward, I ended up going to University of Michigan. I was going to be a rower. I got, my drinking career took over, blackout drinker still. And eventually I went through like a really hardcore breakup. And I think at that point was the first time in my life I was like, I'm going to quit drinking. And I was smoking a ton of pot at that time. And I don't know, I remember it being easy, but I was also really heavy. So I gained a lot of weight because I stopped rowing and everything in college. And then, school was always a challenge, but I knew how to work the system. I was always really, I had all the addict behaviors. Like I was manipulative, I was entitled, I had an ego, like, no other. It was like the life of the party, I'm a super extrovert. So it wasn't that I didn't feel uncomfortable in my own skin. I did have some issues with like childhood kids, but come forward, junior year, I went out to LA to visit a friend and I got introduced to meth, GHB, ecstasy, ketamine. And I realized that I didn't have to drink anymore. So GHB took the alcohol out. So that was perfect because I hated it. And I had no control and I blacked out. So I found drugs that I had control still. And that was like my perfect cocktail. And the meth was self-medicating for ADHD. So for me, I was able to graduate University of Michigan with a 3.6, 3.8 or something like that, because I could actually sit and focus. I felt like I was normal. And from then on, I did not stop using meth. I don't think ever. Like there was no stopping point. I think I tried to quit twice and then I didn't. And then I moved to LA. I was a DJ and producer. So I was in the industry. I started selling drugs. I'm an entrepreneur. I will find a business out of fucking anything, I look back, I'm like, man, I remember selling candy to my brother's friends out of my room. Like, I was always about making money. I had a job in like 5th grade. I've always had like 5 jobs. Like I'm always hustling. And so drug dealing made sense to me. And that progressed to me going to like, okay, not just selling to tons of little people. I'm going to sell to 7 people, massive quantities. And at this point I was fully in my addiction and abusive relationship. And basically I got, end of story, full SWAT raid at my house. I got busted. I quit selling drugs 2 weeks prior, but I still had all this stuff at my house. But that was not my bottom. And I always thought of bottom. I remember a friend of mine saying, oh my God, I'm like, he was like licking my floor for meth, or something weird. And I was like, what are you doing? Because it just was plentiful to me. So I didn't even think anything of it. And he's like, I'm a drug addict. Like, I am a fucking drug addict. And I was like, what? Like, that's someone who lives out of their car. And so I had to learn that everybody's rock bottom is different. Like, I had money, I had everything. I was a successful DJ. I looked at my dog. I asked my dog if I should go to rehab. My dog came, put her head on my lap, and I called my parents and told them that I think I need to go to rehab. I did not know what the 12 steps were. I did not know what the program was. I found this fucking rehab in Malibu where like massages and, you know, whatever, kayaking all day. And I was only going to go to rehab if there was a pool. You know, I'm still trying to control like the situation. So, my dad called back and said, you're not going to this place. So you got to go to somewhere that has a 12-step program. And this is coming from a doctor, and he's a science man. And so I'm sitting here listening to my dad tell me, like, I'm gonna have to go listen to this like God stuff to get sober. Like, it was all like, and I was like, I don't even know what the 12 steps are, but fine, they have a pool. So I went. And that was April 19th, 2006. I went in. I have not touched one of those drugs or any of that shit since that day. But I did relapse, so that comes later. So that was my bottom. Like, I knew at some point it's like probably a lot of you. It's like you get sick and tired of being sick and tired at some point, and we're probably like, we're all kind of like these hard-headed entrepreneurs and really stubborn. So it takes us a minute to be like, I just knew, like, just stay alive, Sam. Just stay alive, and one day I'll get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's when I hope I don't die. I'm already probably going to prison. Like, we got that checked, you know. And I ended up doing 2 years federal prison. I got sentenced to 8 months. LA County. I had 22 counts against me. I was looking at 22 to life. I got really lucky in the grand scheme of things for what I was doing. But you couldn't do anything. Like, I was on that pink cloud that people get on. I was sober through prison, sober through LA County. I was sober for 13 years. And this is where the mental emotional part comes in, is I had my kid. I got work pulled out from under the rug. I went through fertility treatment prior to that. And I think that's where my addiction started to come back alive. And I stopped going to meetings and stopped working a program. And that's where, like, you can't control having a baby.
Right.
You know, and you have to wait. And it was just the most, like, I had no control, and I like to have control. And I was also like in a horrible relationship. I shouldn't have had a kid, but I had the kid. I wasn't working. My ex, who had 27 years sober, started using drugs and lying about it and drinking while I was trying to get pregnant, and then continued to do that while I was pregnant. And I had the baby 7 months afterwards. And this is like, I was already on emotional, like, I was postpartum. I should have gone to a fucking meeting, you know, called someone, but I didn't. I didn't know what to do. I had a baby. I wasn't working. I wasn't making money. Like, it's like all the things I thrive off of. I'm not that maternal. I'm really working on it. And I'm learning to not say that as much, because I'm just not like, you know, every mom is different.
Yeah. And
that's okay. And you know, it looked fun. My ex got sober at 16 and he was drinking. It kind of looked fun. And I was also like, I'm miserable unless I'm drinking when I'm with you. Wow. And so it was fun for a while, and I had control for a while, and then I didn't. It was back to full blown blackout, and it was so bad. I was so isolated. I was drinking. I'd come home. I'd wait till like 4 o'clock and drink like a bottle of gin a night. It was like, I couldn't, the reason I drank so much and probably blacked out is because I couldn't even wait the period of time that I needed to feel the effect of it. Just keep going it till I could like black out. And then I couldn't stop. I could not, like, I could never relate to the alcoholics in the meetings. And in here, NA isn't really big. I know it's all the same thing, but like, I was like, oh yeah, my kid, I probably could have left him out at that water table playing all night, not even known about it. Like, luckily I'm a high functioning blackout. But like the shit that I do, I couldn't stop. The cravings were insane. I was like, this is a disease. And that's when I realized, like, I need a lot of fucking help. And I work a program. I have a sponsor. I chair meetings. I go to meetings. I do service work. I am having a bat mitzvah. I am doing, you know, these massive 2-hour therapy sessions a week, because a lot of it stems from loss. So when I feel great, amounts of loss and abandonment is really uncomfortable for me because I've had it throughout my entire life in like massive ways. And I mean, that's a whole nother story. So I know that like I do all the self-care, I do all the things, but if I don't do my mental emotional, I'm gonna relapse, even if I'm working a program. So I'm back in. I had my 13 years. I did really well. I went out and tested the waters, and it's not fun relapsing with program in your head.
Right.
So that's probably another reason why I just drank even more, because it's not fun, you know. And
Right.
I cut everyone out of my life that drank or I did anything like that with. Now I'm able to be out and do those things and enjoy life. Like I can go to a networking meeting and not just compulsively think about drinking, or wait till I get home so I can just get super fucked up, or yeah. So
Okay.
sorry, that was long.
It's all good. I just want to say how incredible each of your stories are. And, you know, if I would walk by you on the street, obviously I'm not going to know that about you. So I just want to say thank you so much for being courageous enough to share the stories, because this is being live streamed and you don't know how many people are going to see it, but you also don't know how many people you're going to help. So I want to dive in deep about, you know, when you say who you are, you never introduce yourself as I'm a recovering alcoholic or I'm an addict or anything like that. But I want people to understand that, again, there are tools that you can use to get yourself out of these situations. There are things that you choose every single day. And the big one, you know, is self-love. That's the common theme that I've heard with all of you guys. And, you know, this is not about me, but I'm going to share my story too, because I have an addiction with food. And I still have it to this day. And I had a moment yesterday where it cropped its head back up. And I'll tell you, you know, I just came off an 8-week mental toughness body challenge, which I won first prize because I was getting it. I was on the treadmill. I was watching what I eat. I was drinking my Kangen water. I was doing random acts of kindness. I was doing the mindset stuff. And I lost weight and I gained muscle and I won. And I was like celebrating. I'm like, oh, I'm going to celebrate. What am I going to do? I'm going to eat cheesecake to celebrate the fact that I just changed my body over 8 weeks. And so yesterday, and this has not happened to me in a long time, but yesterday I went to a different town than what I live in to get my taxes done. And I was like, oh, I'm really hungry. I didn't eat lunch today. So I went through the drive-thru, got 2 sandwiches, stuffed them down my face in the car, cried all the way home because I knew I was coming home to make dinner to eat in the next 30 minutes. And so I just, you know, when I introduce myself, I don't say I'm a food addict, but it's something that I struggle with every single day. And it's something that I want people to understand, that it doesn't matter what your addiction is. It's a conscious choice every single day to make something different. And for me, it's a huge thing that I have to choose myself every single day. I don't want to be the 398 pounds that I was after the birth of my last child. I never want to be her again. But the feelings that are inside, those sometimes don't go away. And those are the things that we have to have the tools to be able to help ourselves to help ourselves. And then, you know, being able to help ourselves allows us to share our stories, to be able to inspire and empower other people. So I want you ladies to share, and I don't care what order you go in, but what was your biggest, best tool that really helped you kick that habit, or, you know, get on the path to being, okay, I never have to go back to here again. I get to use this tool every day from here on out to be able to be the best that I can be. Go ahead, Angela.
For me, it would be acceptance.
Self-acceptance.
Acceptance. Broad. Self-acceptance, accepting me as I am, accepting what was, right? Accepting my past and knowing that it helped shape who I am today, and I love who I am today. Accepting that not everyone's going to like me, and that's okay. Accepting that there's going to be good days and bad days, and they all matter, because how do I know it's a good day without knowing what a bad day looks like? Accepting my emotions, accepting my, you know, failures, accepting my successes, accepting that people don't like me. Oh, well. Or accepting that, you know, I think so much of it was when I tried to pretend my past didn't exist, when I tried to pretend that when I tried to hide those parts of me and act as though I was always Miss Perfect. Isn't it great? The shame was what would eat at my soul. And that was a danger to me.
Yeah.
When I learned how to accept that, yes, that's my past, and then use that to be more accepting of others, to notice when someone needs help, to share my story with them and say, you're not alone and it's okay. And I'm here to listen if you want to talk. To not judge people for a variety of other things because there, but for the grace of God go I, right?
Wow.
Acceptance across the board.
That is so powerful.
For me.
That landed for me. That resonated a lot because I'm a big proponent of gratitude, being in gratitude for where I've been, what it's brought me to in this moment right now, and knowing that because of that, I get to do all these amazing things that are cropping up for me right now. So being aware and having awareness, that, thank you for sharing that, because that's something that I need to implement in my own life to help myself. So thank
I'm
you.
always here for you, CJ, if you need to talk.
I know. Thank you. Andra, how about you?
For me, I'd have to say that a lot of it is forgiveness, but I wouldn't be sitting sober today if I didn't have the 12 steps in my life, because this is not about willpower. It's just a yet. I can't pick up a drink, and maybe I can today and have a drink and nothing will go wrong. But if I continue, it will. So I know what my future and that projection looks like. So I don't tell myself that, because I don't, once I put that alcohol in my body, all bets are off. I don't have control. So, and I knew that I couldn't do it myself because my best attempts failed. But when I found a program and I was able to do the fourth step with someone else, share the worst I had ever done with another human being, that I was able to move on and let it go, because now it was out there. It didn't hurt me anymore. It didn't have control over me anymore. I could forgive myself for my part in it, and I could forgive them. And forgiveness is a powerful tool. When you can let go and forgive someone else, then you can find it in your heart to forgive yourself. And if I don't forgive them, I can't. Then it's still hurting me. I'm still holding on to it. So, but the 12 steps, I mean, I don't go to as many meetings sometimes when I'm busy, but my thinking goes right back there. My thinking goes there. I haven't thought of a drinking God over a decade, but my behaviors are different when I don't have that 12 step in my life, when I don't share with another alcoholic. So if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing for me, I'm not going to hold on to this. So I have to go to meetings for the rest of my life. I have to stay connected to people, and that too is a choice, because I know where, and loving myself and all that stuff. I've been loving myself a long time. That didn't keep me sober. So just for me, just for today, because I only have today, one day at a time. I do what I need to do, and I identify with everybody's story here, right down to yours, because I have an addictive personality. Doesn't matter what I pick up, my disease is more. The more I have, the more I want, So I have to keep that real and upfront for myself. Even attention. When I get that attention, I want more. I want more. So I was that class clown. So yeah, I identify that, and I identified a lot with Samantha's story. Just because I didn't discuss every place my disease brought me doesn't mean I'm much different. It was just more of an emotional bottom for me.
I love that. And what really landed for me is, I always say, there's things in my life that I forgave people for, but it wasn't for them. It was for me to be able to move on and do the things in my life and not be held hostage by that particular situation or event that happened. And it just landed for me that I need to forgive myself for what I did yesterday in order to continue to heal myself and be better. And I also love that in your own heart that you need the 12-step program to continue to be your best self. And I love that you choose that for yourself. It's not a one size fits all. There's not one major thing that, cures everybody, or a tool that everybody can use that it's going to work to, get them through addiction. So I love that there's different things that we're talking about that is your go-to, that works for you, that maybe it will resonate with whoever's watching as well. So Ashley, how about you?
So I have two things. One thing too, like even with me, like when I was at rock bottom and like I couldn't even help myself, is going to an AA meeting. You know, taking away that, I guess, blind eye kind of thing, saying like, oh, I don't want to go there. But if you find yourself really struggling, go. Like that was my first beginning stage of where I really started working on myself as well, you know, being able to forgive. Like forgiveness was a big thing for me too, letting go of that resentment, you know, doing all that healing work as well, that mindset work. You know, I'm always doing like breath work, journaling till this day, because I'm assessing my emotions, being aware of my emotions, right? Because as in the past, before, it was like you start getting pissed off and it's like, oh, you know what, and you go for that drink. But now I look, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to feel this way. Why am I feeling this way? And I like, you know, work forward, like steps, what I can do to make myself feel better rather than going another direction.
That's awesome. I love the common theme of awareness too. I mean, a lot of people don't look at themselves and do the self-reflection and are not aware of, you know, why they've made the choices and then what different choices they can make to go in a different direction. And that lands for me too. You know, the fact that you guys both mentioned awareness, that's huge. And I think that will help a lot of people, because a lot of people aren't willing to admit I have an addiction with anything. You know, a lot of people just don't want to feel like people are judging them or, you know, having this perception of them. So a lot of people just don't even admit that they have it. So being aware and being able to admit, that's huge. So thank you. How about you, Samantha?
Okay, turn on mic. For me, it's definitely it's the pro. So for me, going to rehab was the biggest thing. When I made that choice and went to rehab, it changed my life. Like just everything I learned. That stint of sobriety was just, it was easy for me. I was just ready and done. I surrendered. I gave it up. Like I pretty much knew my best decision was my worst, and that's where I was at. So I let everybody else run the show, and that worked for a while. And then, you know, I felt like the God part kind of tripped me up in the beginning, but then I don't know. I think that and the God and the higher power. And I don't know. I looking back, I'm like, I think I just was faking it, and it worked. So it was fine. But I connected in so many areas to so many other things that it just worked. And I was just so done. This next time when I was getting sober, I mean, now it's the other thing is my higher power. So, it took, like, I was like, just struggling forever trying to get sober with this alcohol thing. And it was like, everyone's like, just fucking pray, just go to your higher power, just pray on it. And I'm like, it's not working. Like, I'm praying, like I'm doing all these things. I'm praying. And I had one last incident, and I knew, like, something for me, it's like I have to have something really bad happen. And luckily I'm like still alive, but I have to have like something like really like, and I've never lost anybody due to the wreckage of my past. And my boyfriend broke up with me, and I lost a really good friend. And I think between that and then realizing my ego was so big and trying to control my ability to stay sober, which was not working for me, that I was like, oh, I'm just gonna pray on it. And it just, like, then it worked. I don't know what happened. I have no idea. But now I'm like, man, my higher power. I'm like, shit, go for it. You can take this one over. It's just like a way for me to just be like, fuck it. I'm not going to worry about it.
I think
really
what lands for me is surrender. You surrendered to having to have to control it, and the higher power, the divine, actually was able to land because you surrendered to being able to receive that.
Yeah, and part of it is when you work through the steps, you also look at like all the things. And so for me, it's like, oh, well, that's where I was doing that. And it's like, you know, it's, you get to look at a real good, clear reflection of like how you've impacted people. And it's not something I want to do. And then you see where your ego was involved. And, you know, I think everybody should go through the 12 steps, and if they're an addict or not, honestly, but like making
Absolutely.
amends. People like, I love making amends. I love looking at my character defects. Like people are like, I relapsed on step 4. I'm like, I'm glad. I feel like, fine, I can let that go, you know? And sometimes it's hard. Like I am still like, I think about it every day, a lot of the days of how I lost people due to my addiction. And I think too, it's like, they're probably not where, you know, but then that's part of my whole thing with loss. I take on a lot of the guilt and shame. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's my fault that this relationship didn't work because I was the one who relapsed, and that trumps everything. Well, he got in a relationship with someone after he is 7 years sober, and I had like 20 something days. Like, it's like, come on now. You should have, like, that's like a 13th step. So,
right.
you know,
I literally, I just want you guys to understand the impact that you've had on me this morning, because I know parts and pieces of you guys' story, but I've never been this deep and this raw and real with you guys. So I want to thank you for that, as you know, again, because you've impacted me in a way that you guys cannot even understand. So thank you. And I want to wrap it up because we have like 4 minutes left. So I want you to each give one inspiration for anybody watching, to let them know that their addiction is not their identity, and they can be absolutely anything that they want to be. So Andra, go.
You just have to have faith. I mean, I come from a place where I know there's something better than me, like she was talking about, that higher power. I didn't get here on my own. And God doesn't make mistakes. So if you're here, you have a purpose and you have a reason. And we're all here to find that reason. So just move on. Some days are hard. Get up, pick yourself up, and just keep moving. I always say, baby steps will take you anywhere you want to go. Just keep taking them. And it's really, it is that simple.
Awesome. Thank you. Ashley?
So I would say, don't be ashamed. You know, a lot of times we hold so many things and we're too shy or too ashamed to come out and say we need help, or, you know, so it's always about how can you better yourself, taking that step in that right direction, focusing on you. You know, we want to help the whole world. I'm like that too. I would help anyone else out rather than myself first. And I hold on everyone's pain too. And you have to take care of yourself. If you want to hold the fort, you have to take care of you. Start loving yourself. So take that one step each day.
Awesome. Thank you. Angela?
I guess I would say you're worthy. You were born good enough. You were created perfectly imperfect, and there's only one you, and the world needs you. And nobody should ever be defined by their worst moments. We all have them. Even the people that hide them well and can put on pretty filters, and, you know, I mean, everybody has skeletons, and everybody has those moments that they hope no one finds out about, right? It's why we don't all run for political office, because we keep our skeletons really strong in the closet, under the chest. We all have them. And none of that makes us bad or unworthy of love and of support. And if you need help and you need someone to listen, I'm a message away. I might not be able to solve your problems, but I can definitely listen to what you have to say.
Absolutely.
I love that. Thank you. All right, Samantha, you got less than a minute.
Okay, so for me, I don't know. I just recently, like, I've always been really open about my recovery and my story, and so I've just started to, like, even more so, like, lay it out there, like, just like let everybody know. Everybody knows on podcasts. I'm on a recovery podcast. I talk about it, and I have never once in my entire life had anybody judge me for what I went through. Like, it's almost the opposite. I think part of it, that was part of the problem, is everyone's like, you're so strong, you're so strong, you're so strong. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm really not that strong. I'm actually really vulnerable and really emotional fucking shit show. But then I have these other tapes in my head. So for me, it's that. And the biggest thing is, like, you got to think about your legacy. And I say it all the time, is like, imagine what people were saying about you at your funeral. Like, oh my God, that's that chick who, you know, just, I mean, yeah, everybody struggles and people die from drugs. We all know that. But like, what are you going to do? What are you going to tell your kid? What's your kid going to hear about you when something happens? So I think that's a really important thing, is like, I want to do something with what I've done, and I have no regrets. So
Awesome. That's great. And we need to wrap it up. So I just want to say thanks again. And I just want anybody who's watching to know that you are not your past. Your addiction does not define you. You can rise from the ashes and be anything you absolutely want to be in your life. So choose to be.
thanks,
Thank
CJ.
you, ladies.
Thank
Peace.
you.
No cheesecake.